Just show me They're going back to DPS.
Yeah. We're DPS now.
Like that.
No, I came in 87, 2 years after. I think 85, they launched it.
Yeah. Do I have a script? Yes, yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hope everybody has a good morning. It is now 9:37, and this will commence the start of the Peace Officers and Standards Training Commission meeting for November 23rd, 2021. To my left, we have Chief Bob, and to my right, we have Chief Ray. Right now, we're going to do the roll call. So, if I may, here I am, yay, or present. We'll start with the Guam Police Department.
Present.
Guam Airport Police.
Present.
Guam Port Police.
Present.
The Guam Attorney General.
Present.
Customs, present. Guam Department of Corrections.
Present.
Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources, Guam Department of Agriculture. University of Guam. Guam Community College. Unified Courts of Guam, Marshal Judiciary. Guam Fire Department.
Present.
Unified Courts of Guam Probation.
Present.
Guam Department of Administration Personnel Services Division.
Present.
Department of Youth Affairs.
Yes, sir.
Guam International Airport Aircraft Rescue Firefighting ARF.
Present.
And Department of Parks and Recreation. Okay, we have a quorum, gentlemen. Okay, so we're going to move to agenda item 2, review and approval of minutes from October 15, 2021. If I may, if everybody's already read through the minutes, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from October 15, 2021?
I motion to approve.
A motion from GPD and second from Fire Department. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we'll go to agenda item 3, chairman and vice chairman remarks. I'm going to just give you guys a little bit of an update on some of the things that we've been working on. The vice chairman and myself had met with the lieutenant governor's office because if you guys take a look at the membership of the post commission and what it comprised of with the full-time staffing, there's only one full-time staff. So as many of you guys know, or you understand, that in order to focus your attention, you need to devote most of your time towards ensuring that the processes and the policies and everything is moving consistently in line with the mission. So currently with the post commission, there's only one full-time funded position. And even at that, the funding is not, to me, I don't believe it's sufficient for the level of knowledge and qualifications that is needed for an executive director. So they've given around, I think it's like $75,000 for the funding of that position. And they've got like $5,000 for one conference and about $500 for supplies. We need to work with the lieutenant governor's office, and the update is that they're willing to help us out. So I'm going to be establishing a budget and working, and if you guys have any idea of what we may need as far as funding is concerned, I welcome that. So the lieutenant governor's office has agreed to assist us in moving from where we're at now towards where we need to be. Some of the old business, I'll be giving you a little bit of updates, but we did meet regarding, of course, the executive director position, the authorization for post to establish the uniform law enforcement general force leadership structure, tier, and pay plan, and our endeavor with Police One. And so with that, I'll reserve some of the comments for during that time as the old business comes up. Aside from that, I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully everybody's family is safe. I now turn it over to Ray, if you have any remarks.
Just good morning all. It was a positive outcome with the visit with the Lieutenant Governor. He praised the discovery that had been brought forth that was actually at a standstill in the post commission. And so the seek of assistance is there. He's 100% to support. And like Chief was mentioning here, everything is flowing the way it's supposed to. Chief just has to bring up and introduce what the plan is on the budget. Instead of the 72,000, it's going to gear up more funding for that. That's been said, we as the Post Commission have to move forward and support, the needs to have the Post Commission actually virtually establish, the commission members, a directorship, and also staffing. That's where we at. Well, thank you for you guys being here, and I hope we can work together and get this out of the way because it's dragging the commission's decision forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Chief.
Now I turn it over to Chief Bob for his remarks.
Before we begin, if you're going to speak up, please make sure you identify yourself so we can have it in the recording so Bertha can have understand who's talking at the time when she's doing the minutes. So just say your agency and your name. I know we have the old business here, but Chief Hussein is asking if he can speak first because he has to leave at 10 o'clock for another commitment. So we're gonna do the new business first. Before we do that, I'm going to update everybody on, after Chief Joe's presentation, I'm gonna be discussing the post-commission post police one funding and post decertification and medical profiles. So I developed some possible proposals on that. So if nobody has any objection to that, I would like to ask if Chief Joey, go ahead and do your presentation.
Thank you, Chief. For the record, this is Chief Manabusan, Guam Fire Department. I'm the appointed voting member for the Guam Fire Department. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I provided 2 exhibits for you. The Executive Order 2006-07, it's the one on the legal paper, and the shorter 8.5 by 11 NFPA professional qualifications and introduction to the Post Commission. Now, what I'll discuss first is the NFPA consensus standards. The NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association, and what they are is they're a national consensus organization that is comprised of professionals in the fire service, fire engineering, fire protection, the emergency response organizations. They're very big, and the standards are used throughout the world, globally. They're used in England, they're used in India, Japan, Australia. They're recognized as an authority in fire service professional standards and qualification standards as well. So what I want to do is provide a very brief presentation to the Post Commission on the standards. Now, what the NFPA certification professional qualifications, it's also known as ProQuals. So what they do is they establish minimum criteria for organizations, fire brigades, fire departments, and so on and so forth. And within the fire service, there's different types of duties and tasks. And I listed some of them. The ones that I point out are like the NFPA 1001 firefighter professional qualifications. That'll cover like firefighter 1, firefighter 2. And it starts with the basic duties and up towards the more technical tasks. We have the apparatus driver operator, we have airport firefighter, technical rescuer, marine firefighting, fire officer. And when we look at NFP 1021 fire officer, and by the way, I took out a lot of the details, because if I was to cover all the details, that would comprise of like a 40-hour class, and I don't want to bog this meeting down. So like with the fire officer, one of the advantages of this program is it helps in terms of leadership development for fire officer 1, fire officer 2, 3, and 4. So it starts off as your basic supervisor, moving up towards management, more towards administrative, and overall at the executive level as a fire officer. And throughout each of these various standards, if you look at the list, I won't go through the list with all of them. By the way, they also have the 1033, which is fire investigator, which could also apply to our fire and police investigators, by the way. So these are training and qualification standards that are well established. They're created in the form of job professional requirements, JPRs, and they can be used to help develop like curriculum, performance evaluations, hiring qualifications, and so on and so forth. So these are the various ones. If any of you are interested in more details, you can actually call me up, or you can go to nfp.org and take a look at the different standards that we have here. So why am I bringing this up? Okay, part of our mandate in the post is to approve curriculum and to develop standards that will help develop our professional emergency responders, our peace officers. So these are standards that are well established, and what I wish to do with the Post Commission is not all at one time. I'm not going to try to like put this all on our group as a commission and say, let's approve all of this. No. What I want to do is first provide you a briefing, and I'm not going to read Appendix B word for word. When you have time, please take a look at it. You can also go online. There's free access to the NFPA standards. A lot of them can be used to use as a model for even your specific agencies, for our LEOs, for our law enforcement officers, for developing for these type of standards. Especially with the fire officer, we want to develop our different levels of fire officer, manager, supervisor, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of the concepts, they apply across the board. Now, if there's something better that you can use, then by all means use that, but this is just another approach for professional development. As a matter of fact, we use this already with Department of Administration for necessary special qualifications. Now, one of the things that I found that I observed with our government, our island, is that we're doing it sort of a little backwards. Okay? We're using like a third-party qualification as a necessary special qualification. Now, that's okay if you don't have a state entity like the Post Commission, but the state should provide their qualification, and anything from the outside can be used as reciprocity. So you go to like a lot of other states and they have their standardizing agencies. What they do is they have their professional qualifications first, and many times they use other models such as NFPA. They use FEMA, they use Homeland Security, OSHA, whatever the case may be, whatever the police want to use. They establish their standards, and anything from the outside would be used more as reciprocity. And that actually makes more sense, because you don't want to be dependent on an outside certification force, because if you put all your eggs in that basket and all of a sudden that organization does not use it anymore, where does that leave us? Now, if the Post Commission is the primary organization and entity that establishes all standards, we're not talking just about fitness standard. We're talking about training, we're talking about curriculum, we're talking about whatever type of academics. Before you're going to use something, it has to go to the Post first. Because if we don't do that, we're setting ourselves up for failure for all of our guys and gals, okay? From the bottom up. Right now, the fire department is facing that challenge, and I'm hoping that somehow the Post can be part of the solution. And I think we can be, because other state organizations, they are the solution. And because the state standardization and training entity, we are the primary designated legal organization to approve curriculum, to approve certifications. Okay, so that's the NFPA. Again, what I'll do is I'll take each standard, maybe one or two, and slowly introduce it. I want to try to keep my briefings below 10 minutes, okay? Because there's so much to cover in the Post Commission. But I think it can be done if we stick with our agenda and we focus on what we want to do. So the next item that I want to bring up is, if everybody can pull out again the executive order, the NIMS, okay? Now, why is this very important? Because in 2006, the President of the United States mandated all federal agencies to adopt NIMS, to become NIMS compliant, the National Incident Management System. Okay, why is that important to us? In 2006, the governor, by Executive Order 2006-07, mandated NIMS and incorporated it into all our emergency operations. And that is applicable to every organization that's involved in incident command. Now, why is that important to us? Okay, incident command system. To be an incident commander, to even go out and command an incident scene and be an incident commander, you must be a certified incident commander. Now, fortunately, we have Chief Ray here, who's had an experience with this, where they were going to accept this NIMS compliant incident commander certification. Now, this is very important because if any state or territory is not NIMS compliant, they will render themselves ineligible for federal grants. That is the law. Now, what are we dependent upon most of the time? A lot of federal grants. If we do not, we're setting ourselves up for two things if we don't comply with this. Number one, the potential to lose federal grants, number one. Number two, the potential for an individual to grieve that, hey, I am following the law, why aren't you? So, one of the things that the fire department has to do under necessary special qualifications is to complete a pro board incident commander program, right? Now that incident commander program has to be NIMS compliant, not the other way around. It has to be NIMS compliant first. Why is that important to us? Well, civil defense, Guam Community College, because even Chief Ray went through some of those courses. Right now, civil defense, they're offering NIMS compliant incident commander course 300. Now, if you look at the 300, it's not just 300 by itself. And Chief here, Mendiola, can attest to this, they do offer it there. There are prerequisites. So you're not just taking like a 16-hour course or a 24-hour course. there are prerequisites. You gotta take the NIMS 100, the 200, the 700, before you can even take the 300 or 400. After you take the 300 is actually equivalent to the Hazmat Incident Commander course because it's designed for those incident commanders that are out on the fire scene or out on the road. It could be a terrorist scene, it could be a criminal scene, but whoever takes command must be certified. That is the law. You cannot just say, oh, I'm the highest ranking. Yes, technically the highest ranking, but if anything goes wrong, that person is going to be in very big trouble if they're not trained to do that job. And that is the reason why, after this mandate was done, civil defense was ordered to ensure that Guam becomes in compliance with this. Why again is that important to the Post Commission? Because we are charged with the duties, we are mandated to create and approve qualifications and standards for all peace officers. Mr. Flisco, that also applies to the Department of Administration. Anything that DOA approves for any necessary special qualification that has to do with incident command has to be compliant with NIMS. Now, if there is a NIMS professional qualification that exists out there that's equivalent or exceeds what is in the necessary special qualifications, not just for the fire department, but for ARF, for GPD, for Port Authority, whoever else has that as a necessary special qualification, it has to be NIMS compliant. If you are going to have a training program that deals with incident command system, and we do every year, every single one of us are invited or required to participate under the Territorial Emergency Response Plan. As a matter of fact, we're planning a big one down that's going to be at the port, and so we're going to be part of that. I've been participating in some of the planning. So NIMS is required. It's not an option. And the NIMS course is not, the NIMS course is the one that sets the criteria for other types of incident commander courses. There are courses out there, there are certifications that far exceed the qualification standard, and that is the point I'm making. And perhaps what we'll do is we'll take a look at what is out there, we'll provide a list, as a Post Commission, we'll produce a document that says this is our stance on this particular course. This is our stance when it comes to necessary special qualifications. I think I said enough on that. If there's any other questions, because I know there's a lot on the agenda. Chiefs, thank you for the time. Again, if anybody has any further questions, please call me up. I will take your call. At least if you send me a call, because I don't know your number, I don't answer numbers that I don't recognize. So follow by a text, I think this is whoever, and I will return your call, I guarantee it. And we can have that discussion, we can meet, whatever.
I have a question.
Yes,
Chief. Is all these that you listed here, is this already reflected in DCC training that you have here?
Which ones?
This one with national.
Okay, yes, a lot of these courses, not all of them, by the way. Now, if we,
Now, is your intention to implement all of this in your GCC?
well, GCC is gonna give courses that deal with fire.
Okay,
It is highly recommended that these are national consensus standards.
yeah.
They help to develop curriculum, and the answer is yes. When Colonel Santo Tomas was working on updating,
Yeah.
I was helping him out, outside help for free.
Right, right.
But we were using the national consensus standards, yes.
Okay, so your intention is all of these listed here will be in the training academy of GCC?
It'll be incorporated, yes, yes. It won't be this will not be the only source, because keep in mind, there are other sources that have to be also addressed. So, and by the way, it's also by federal mandate. I'll give you a good example, like the OSHA respiratory protection program. If you work in a job that deals with the potential where you're dealing with hazmats or anything of that nature, it has to be OSHA compliant. Now, the NFPA is not a federal organization. They are a consensus standard. Do they have federal workers that work with NFPA? The answer is yes. Do they have state professionals? The answer is yes. So these are it's one of the oldest organizations that work towards improving fire safety, but not just for the safety of the community, but also for the responders. They set up standards. And by the way, law enforcers follow this. State fire marshal offices, the International Association of Arson Investigators, they follow this. The alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, NFPA 1033 for fire arson investigation, they follow this. Why is NFPA 1033 also important to us? That's a Category 1 law enforcement position. So our fire investigators have to be certified to a nationally recognized standard such as the NFPA 1033. That is one example. Again, I don't want to bog everything down by going through every single one. I did list them and gave their primary title. If you want to look up the details, again, you can go to, there's free access, by the way, to the NFPA. So I don't want to say that with GCC that this is the one and only. This is just one of them that I'm presenting today. I'm presenting two areas, the NIMS, the National Incident Management System, and the National Fire Protection Association. There are others, such as OSHA, that I would bring up, that are actually also requirements that affect even all law enforcement. And I'll talk about that another time.
All right, thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Joe? So the intention then is for us to digest this,
Yes.
right? And then, so when we come back at our next scheduled meeting, what is it that we're expected to do? Are we looking at possibility of establishing a committee or adopting standards?
Thank you, good question. At first, I was thinking, and that's the reason why it's good to have this commission. I wanted to bring up the idea of a possible fire service committee. How many do we have in here in the fire service? 2, right? 1, 2. If we're gonna make a committee, that means we're gonna have to have committee dates. We have committee dates, we're gonna have to have BERTA, right? We're gonna have to have the high-tech, the technology department coming here. It'll bog down the system. The resources that we already lack, how hard is it gonna be? Because at the end of the day, the post commission is gonna be the one that's gonna vote on anything on the agenda, anything, curriculum, whatever the case may be. Voting members still have to vote on it. What if it's just me and Ray and we can't agree on anything in committee? It'll never get anywhere. So, and not that we're not gonna agree. One thing that I can tell you right now, me and Chief Ray do agree on, and even our Deputy Fire Marshal right here, Captain Titata, this is Captain Titata, by the way. Thanks for coming here. But he's my Deputy Fire Marshal, okay, and he is like one of the best workers that you can find in the fire department. Very good. Anyways, if it's just gonna be me and Ray, it'll really bog down the system. We're gonna have to have BERTA coming out to all these meetings. We're gonna have to do all the announcements. There'll be times where we'll be either moving too fast or moving too slow. It's not ideal for Guam. So that idea, I decided it probably won't be a good idea to have that committee versus looking at the way the post commission is set up. You're looking at the language. It's really set up so that we can all vote on a matter. But before we vote on anything, of course, we need to educate our members because nobody's gonna say, oh, no idea what the hell we're talking about. So what we'll do is, if I'm gonna present a standard, I'll present it so that you take a look at it, maybe we'll email it, say, take a look at this. BERTA can email it to everybody, take a look at it first, before you come in. And I'll tell you what, when you look at a standard, NFPA has committees, they have subcommittees, they have subcommittees. Tell you, they really look at something really good first. They have blogs, they take input from the entire globe. By the time they produce a standard, like any one of these standards, and by the way, the editions are constantly updated, it has been looked at by so many eyes. And that is the reason why it's good to have standards such as these. We do use them, the fire department does use them. Right now we use NFPA 1001, which is for the firefighters, the basic from firefighter 1 up to firefighter 2. We use fire officer 1 to 4. We use fire instructor 1 to 3. We use fire investigator, 1033. The 1031, we use that for our inspectors and plan checkers. The 1041, we use that for our instructors. Now here's the problem that we were facing right now. We were using the SIBAN standard, which is NFPA. The only problem is we're using their agency as a certification agency. When it should have been here at the post or at GCC. Now that was actually one of the plans, but it never went through. So here we are a decade later, requiring certain special qualifications to our firefighters, and including in ARF, which Chief Ray told me that he was actually denied one of his, because he was unable to produce an IFSAC or PROBO certification, but he was using a NIMS compliant incident command certification. Now, the Post Commission officially recognizes certain certification or qualification standards, whether it be from NFPA, whether it be from NIMS, whether it be from FEMA, or whatever law enforcement organization, FBI, the ATF, whatever. If they can recognize any type of national standard, federal standard, or consensus standard, I know there's police consensus standards out there, right? I don't know, you guys are the experts in that. But if there was, and we approve of it, we reviewed it, we approved of it, we have a member from DOA, we have GCC looking at it, we have the Attorney Generals looking at it, I mean, we can say that this, we approve this for our community. And anything outside will be consensus. And because of our population not as big as like Indiana or New York or Texas, I think that our Post Commission here, adding another committee might be too much. I know you're just talking about another committee, Chief Ray. I'm sorry, Chief Vince. I don't vote for Ray and Vince. They're both my old friends. But his brothers, both of them are good friends of mine. But if you have a committee that you're gonna set up, yeah, I mean, really, all we really gotta do is take volunteers, and most people don't raise their hand for volunteering, but I know if the effort was worth it, count me in on any committee after, Chief. But there you go,
All right,
just those two
I just
items.
want to go ahead and point out that anytime, even we have a subcommittee, anytime we have a meeting, it has to be publicized.
Yes.
So it's already notified by the AGs.
Mhm.
That, so even if it's a subcommittee, training committee or whatever, it has to be publicized and, you know, and, the same thing with having, the Zoom, access or whatever, the YouTube access. So, yeah, it's gonna be very difficult when we have subcommittees. So, just to let you guys know.
And that is the reason why I decided to pull out that whole committee idea, because I don't wanna bog down whatever work we're working on right now.
Okay, but,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Anybody need, documents, let me know.
Okay, before we, because I know that we have new business that needs to be brought up, but we'll bring that up because I know that Chief Joey's got another appointment. So, old business, I'm gonna try and go through it rather quickly, and if you guys have any input, please just let me know. So, once again, under sub-letter A, Guam Post Executive Director position, budget allocation for GCC for $72,000 for FY '22 to fund a program specialist to establish a standard uniform law enforcement officer general force leadership structure tier and general pay scale plan for category 1 peace officers. So when you look at the budget law is 36-54, that was quoted from the budget. It gives an amount for program specialists. But in meeting with the president from GCC, this program specialist is the one in the same position for the executive director. So we're not getting two sets of money. We're not getting one for a program specialist and one for the executive director. Pretty much this is just one pot of funding, which is really to fund I guess, either you look at it, the program specialist, which is really going to be the executive director. Okay. Subsection B, plan on authorization given to post to establish a standard uniform law enforcement officer general force leadership structure tier and pay scale plan. That also is from Public Law 36-54. So we're going to need to establish a committee with representatives from all our law enforcement organizations to include having membership from the Department of Administration and some guidance from the Guam Federation of Teachers and the Civil Service Commission. The reason why I say that is because the Department of Administration is the HR organization for the executive branch. And by law 36-54, it mandates that we work with also the Civil Service Commission and the Guam Federation of Teachers in moving forward.
Sir, I'd like to go ahead and point out, and maybe Francis can give us a little bit of information on this, but I've been informed by the governor that DOA is already working on a pay scale, pay scale, for all law enforcement. So what I was proposed possibly is that in January, that we meet with all these GFT, civil service, and DOA, and maybe get the directors, I don't know, whoever, if it's Mike or yourself, who's, I don't know what you guys have right now as far as the, you know, what research you've done and what your proposals are, but I don't wanna have we shouldn't have two different tracks, post-commission and DOA, and it's gonna be conflicting, right? So, Francis, do you have anything on what DOA is working on at this point?
My name is Francis Flisco from DOA. Yes, basically, I can't, unfortunately, still under review,
Right.
so I can't reveal any details about it.
Right.
However, what we're doing is based on the governor's authority, which is to the COPS Act, I think 29-105, I believe. So that's the authority that's being used to doing the study.
Okay,
So that's that authority. So, but of course, the post commission has its own authority to do a review as well.
well, what I want to do is to make sure that we don't have the conflicting, strategies, and we work together, and that way you have a complete plan, because it's already within the law, right? But I was wondering that maybe we can have two meetings in January. One is mid-part, like maybe January 15th or so, and then at the end of the month, we come for a vote or what have you. Well, if that is the issue right now. I'm not sure if you guys will be complete by mid-January or not, but at least have some kind of reference point, you know, and discuss what your strategy is of developing this pay scale.
Okay, so again, Chief, basically what you're saying is we'd like to try to arrange a meeting with the post commission.
Yeah, the post commission,
DOA.
and then maybe we can have it here or, you know, or over there, DOA, and, you know, discuss it at length, you know, and rather than us having separate meetings with, what Mr. Byrne, the director, has intentions for, we should be at the same sheet of music, right? And not duplicating the process.
I can bring it to his attention.
Yeah, I don't know, what does everybody think? Do you think that's a good idea?
Sir,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Stephen, also, please. So I did have a meeting with Mr. Byrd and Mr. Shane Nata
Okay.
about 3 months ago,
Okay,
and I did discuss the pay scale plan for the Guam Police Department,
okay,
which was supposed to encompass a pay scale plan for, I think, the public safety in general.
right,
One of the things that we discussed is that the implementation would be at, I believe, Francis, right, the governor's authority.
Yes, that's correct.
Kind of similar to what they did with the nurses' pay scale,
right,
right? So that's similar to the track that they were following. That's the only thing I believe that they were legally able to do, is something similar to what they did for the nurses.
right,
This group of nurses got 25%. This group of nurses got 15%, and I think this group of nurses got 10%. And I think it was based on where you were assigned to, and what your duties and responsibilities were.
right.
Right, Francis?
Basically that was a pay differential.
Yeah,
The
it's just pay
overall,
differential, but it was, I mean, it's technically the pay raise. Because it was,
the
not a pay raise, but it was
the base scale was raised to a certain percentage first.
Right.
And then, and also there was basically, like you said, a pay differential depending upon where you want to classify.
yeah, so like I heard like the nurses at JMH got 25%, right?
Yes.
And then a nurse at DOE got 10% or 15% only.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And so that was the track that I was informed that they may follow for the Guam Police Department, and it may also be across the board. I'm not sure.
Yes, it's across the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I think it's essential that we all have it,
But-
because right now, with the exception of you, I don't think other agencies have the chance to
Yeah.
discuss that.
But that's very different though from a pay scale plan. That's just differential pay.
Right.
Yeah.
That thing can go away, it can be rescinded,
Okay,
but a pay scale plan is something similar to what we have now, where it's codified in law, that this is what you get at this rate and at this many years of service.
right.
So I think, honestly, I think we should just continue on with our pay scale plan. Because unless they're actually developing a pay scale plan,
That's what I understand.
yeah, because my understanding from my conversation is a differential pay, similar to nurses.
That's where we're gonna, maybe Francis, you can get some information on that? Is it overall, like, you know, like a Hay study, right? Are they gonna use like some of the information from the Hay study to implement something, or are they doing like an incentive pay, right? Like for the nurses, I mean, even the correction officers, we have an incentive pay and DYA has an incentive pay. They have a 25% incentive pay. So maybe we can get clarification from the director.
I can check with you.
Okay, all right. And then when you find that information, then we can make an announcement. Let's go ahead and meet. Is that okay, sir?
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, if it's only an incentive pay, then we'll just start with our own. But if it's going to be overall pay scale changes, then we should meet. Right?
Again, that depends on this body.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what, if I may, you know, one of the things, and I like the idea that Chief Ignacio is talking about, like, yes, this incentive pay is a good thing, right? Now, one of the things that we're looking at as part of that Public Law 36-54 is to create a leadership structure plan. And I think that is still very necessary, because you have people who come into the government of Guam and they start off as law enforcement trainees, and part of the group enters into an apprenticeship. And so if we can develop a force structure that identifies that if you come in with high school, you come in at LEO level 1, if you come in with a basic law enforcement training certificate, you come in as a LEO 2. If you come in with some sort of degree, you come in as an LEO 3, but you have 3 levels of training. So you have training LEO 1, 2, 3. When you graduate, you go into LEO 4. What that does is that it puts you on a track with an apprenticeship. And if you have a 2-year apprenticeship, and I believe the Guam Police Department has established one, and Customs is going to be starting theirs, we just got it approved, is that after the first year, you meet your time and grade, time and service, and you meet the requirements outlined in your apprenticeship, you get a non-competitive promotion into LEO 5, which brings you to your year 2 of your apprenticeship. And then you start into your journeyman. So these levels are something that we can identify and delineate all the way up to the level of special duties. You have investigators, you have guys who do training, you can have special positions, and you can actually add several layers of basic supervision, field supervision, and then eventually you get to the part where eventually you have strategic vision. So what this law enforcement officer general force leadership structure plan hopes to do is to give the commission members a standard so that when you take a look at the positions within your organization, you can say, oh, I already know that this is not a supervisory position. However, it's in the first tier, which is the guys that are learning how to be patrol officers, or the guys who are learning how to do inspections in the field. And so one of the things that I'm hoping for is that as we progress down the line, that we can take this post law enforcement officer force structure and marry it with what the Department of Administration is doing. I like the model that the Guam Police Department has. In doing my own research in line with what a force structure looks like, the Guam Police Department has most of the positions that you would want to have in a large organization for law enforcement that you can use to model a force structure. As a matter of fact, what I see is that the Guam Police Department can also add about 2 to 3 more levels within the organization. So that allows for more career progression within the ranks. So what I'm hoping for is that eventually we get to that point, and I know that Chief Bob was talking about meeting in December, but what I'm hoping for is that we really need to get some sort of commitment, because we're given 12 months to establish this force structure and a tiered pay plan. So the quicker we can move towards that end, the better. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So can we just go with what we just finished talking about?
Okay.
Sir, did you want to clarify, you want to have a meeting in December or January?
January.
I think you said December.
December.
January.
January.
Because I think December is
Yeah.
gonna be shot.
Yeah, it's pushing it already.
Okay. Yeah, so moving on to item C there, I spoke with the Lieutenant Governor, and we're going to use the ARA funds possibly. We're going to use about $70,000 to implement the Police One software, the learning management software. And so he promised that this is going to happen, and he's just working on the details with the Chief of Staff. So once that happens, is that every single agency will have this at their agency, and we'll have a formal training course on it. And essentially, it's gonna manage all of our certifications, all of our training. And you know, I guess it'll be easier for everybody to manage all the training requirements throughout their agency. So that's the update. And so it is not forgotten, and Dr. P did a lot of work to get this implemented.
We get totals, so.
Oh, yeah.
We're still in line with them. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we need the total amount of LEOs or peace officers in your agency, so we can get the updated amount. It's all dependent on how many law enforcement or peace officers that we have. So if you can do that, you can just send it out to Bertha and myself, or to the chief, and we'll compile the most updated information. And you know, we all had current recruits, so it's going to be different from 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Like currently, we have like 15 recruits right now.
Chief,
Yeah.
can I
Oh, yeah.
just, is this the amount you're asking for the present personnel on board?
Yes.
Or even to include the vacancies that are supposed to be
No,
filled?
just the warm bodies right now. Just the warm bodies.
And the reason why I was asking that, sir, is because if you did fill the vacancy, it won't be part of the ERA funding to cover. And so.
I think it has to be warm bodies. But
Yes, so.
I tell you what, why don't you just do two things? One is give us the warm bodies, and the ones that are unfilled, that, you know, that way we can make some adjustments accordingly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if I can get that by next week, you know, let's say Friday, that would be great, so I can update get the count from Police One. All right.
Chief.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Steve Lasher, Chief, please. Just a question though. Do the members understand that what this is all about and what this is moving forward?
Yes, sir.
Because this is just startup money, the 70,000.
I know this.
What that means that in next fiscal year, you're gonna have to budget for this.
Yes.
Right.
And you have to understand, that there's a cost per person, I think like $37.
It's pretty, yeah, there's a maintenance
Somewhere around there,
cost.
there's a cost for this membership every year.
Right.
But, at the front end though, once we're able to sign up to Police One, just understand that there's a lot of administrative work that's gonna be on you.
Right.
Because what we're trying to do with Police One is pretty much digitize your records, your training records and your personnel files into Police One. So you're gonna have to plan for that and also think about that moving forward, because it's not just about getting onto LexisNexis and Police One to access the training materials and the articles and reading about the latest, greatest stuff. But there's gonna be work involved with you entering your system. If you don't know how they're doing it, go to the port police, go to the airport police, or probation, or the Superior Court Marshals. My understanding is that that's what you guys are using.
Are you guys using
So-
Police One?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I
know.
know, the airport police.
So, Vince Happy from Airport Police, I think currently what's happening is they have a learning management system.
Right,
That's
that's what we're
still
doing.
Yeah.
I think what it is still maintained. But I think they're looking towards, updating, so I'm not really sure if they moved to policeone.com, but from
Actually,
my
we have
understanding,
it.
no.
Yeah, we have it, and we're not
It's the
using
same-
learning
it's gonna be the
management
same.
LMS. We're
It's the
not.
same, it's the same
Right.
company, policeone.com is
It's the
the
same
learning
company.
Right.
management system. But, maybe if there's one of you guys that actually use it,
Yeah.
I would suggest maybe a demonstration on how it's used
So,
and what the benefits are.
Lieutenant,
So Chief, to answer your question, you know, you're right, the administrative part of policeone.com is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so, the good thing about policeone.com is they have someone that's assigned that actually will come and, get on virtual with you and walk you through the process, right? But, then again, you're talking about time differences and everything, but the airport police certainly can assist and help
Yeah.
with everybody established. Because I mean, it is a lengthy process to do, especially like for the Guam Police Department. I'm sure there's a lot of things they have to upload into the system to get everybody to where they need to be, so it's a lot of work,
Yeah,
but it can be done.
yes, the Lieutenant Governor knows.
But I was under the impression, right, that, with, late Dr. Fee, is that the hopes of, joining policeone.com was to ensure that when it came with the certification, that the commission would vote on, right, say this is what our training standards are, that the post-commission to give out these certifications will come from policeone.com. So, I mean, that's what he was envisioning,
Yeah,
to happen, so there's not this, all this paperwork and trying to figure out people's training records to satisfy, post, certification.
So I think what it is too is we have to tell Police One,
yeah,
the learning management system,
right,
this is what you need. You know, you need all of these
Oh, yeah,
courses,
curriculum.
right?
Yes.
This is what we're looking for, and so Officer A is missing it, flag Officer A and that agency
Yeah.
head,
yeah,
and post commission saying Officer A is missing this training requirement.
right.
So
Right.
from what I understood was, the commission would run the policeone.com and everybody
Right.
would merge their documentation into policeone.com where the commission has, administrative access to be able to certify.
Right,
Right.
And so I'm hoping that that's still the vision and the goal going forward.
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it goes back now to the post commission, but
Goes right back.
who's driving that train? So to go back to item A,
Well,
are we hiring an executive director or
well,
program
that's what,
specialist?
yes, the executive,
Yeah.
yeah,
I can
on
give it
that
up.
point is that, you know, I know the chief said, chairman said that, he had talked with the president and they're looking at hiring someone, to take over. I need some relief myself because, I'm trying to, I got so many different, wearing different hats and, right now, you know, we're building a $200 million prison and, my, work for the next year is gonna be quite intensive, but we don't have time to handle all these things, so we'll get that. We're gonna have a interview process and all that.
Yeah, so I met with both Dr. Okada and I also met with the Lieutenant Governor regarding this, and so in moving forward, it looks like we may combine the funding that the Guam Community College has received and take whatever additional funding we can from the Lieutenant Governor's authority and add it together. Because when you take a look at the 72,000, that comes out to about, what, 47,000 as an annual salary for a position that needs to hit the ground running and to consistently move our initiatives forward. And many of you understand as leadership that when you're dealing with your entity 100% of the time, and then yet you have to deal with additional responsibilities dealing with post, it becomes very challenging. So when you have a quasi or a part-time membership in the post commission, but there's no real person leading it, many of the things can get stalled. So in moving forward, we're going to combine the funding And so I'm going to make an appointment again to meet with the Lieutenant Governor's office and find out how soon we can do it, because yes, this is very necessary, but we will also, I believe by law, we also have to vote on the nominee, once it's been vetted.
Yes.
So, more to come on that, at a later date.
Mr. Chair, I suggest, you may want to look at the Ethics Commission. That is a two-man team and a relatively short time. So that's Mr. Jesse Kenya, and he's got one admin assistant. They have hit the ground running. They've actually started Ethics Commission training, or ethics training, right?
How many full-time positions do they?
One.
Just one?
One director, one full-time position. And they're responsible for the whole of government to ensure that everybody gets ethics training.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, Chief Manabusan, Guam Fire Department, yes, the Ethics Commission has started. They do have an online program, $80 per head. Now, I was appointed because of training. I also run the training bureau on top of the fire prevention bureau. But I was assigned to take a look at it, and annual requirement is an annual reporting requirement. Every agency has to do it. Whether you're gonna say you have 0 people that are trained in ethics, then you met that requirement. So that's what they got from GFD this year. I reported, it was October 31st, I believe was the deadline. And if you haven't reported, just send a memo, and put it in a spreadsheet, send it to Mr. Kenya, just say that how many are trained. Most directors have received some training at UOG, but if it's 0, just say 0. And what I did was I accompanied that spreadsheet with a request if they can waive the Guam Fire Department's $80 fee per person. And according to them, they said, Chief, they didn't say yes, they didn't say no, but what they did say was that we have 3 years to comply. Those that are existing now, any new hirees have, I believe, 6 months. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
It's 6 months where if you hire somebody today, they have to get the ethics training within 6 months. So that should be included in your budget for new hires. Just add that into your budget. But as for the existing, I did ask, can you waive GFD? And we've done that with many organizations, including the police and AGs, and they were very receptive to waiving the police clearances and stuff like that.
I was using them as an example of how much a budget will cost to run a two-man team for the post commission.
Okay.
Which is just an executive director and a program specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Chief, you were saying that they were supposed to use the fees to help keep the program sustainable.
Yeah, the $80.
Yeah.
And actually, there's probably gonna be a new agenda, what we were talking about.
I was saying, sorry, but we don't have $17,000 at this time to put there. We need that for like the COVID responses, and 90% of our funds go towards operational costs. So,
Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right. Okay, moving on. I have 2 documents here. One is the post-decertification process and employee medical and psychological assessment. I want to go ahead and kind of give everyone a quick briefing on this. I guess we can vote on it on the next meeting, but I just want to kind of give you a little briefing. You know, we've been, I've understand that, you know, I've gotten some information about many people who have been terminated or transferred and what have you, or reclassified, and there have been a lot of questions regarding that. And so, and then there was a question on how do we decertify that. I think Chief Ignacio asked that question. So what I did is I put down all the different authority from the statutes that gives us that authority, and what we can do. But I want to make this clear, okay? Agencies do not have the authority to decertify a police officer. I'm hearing some stuff about that coming from other law enforcement agencies. The only people that can do that is the post commission, okay? So there's 2 different actions, disciplinary action, that's separate from decertification, okay? So the agencies can do the disciplinary action and go to the post-commission process, the civil service process, but it's only the post-commission that can do the decertification. Now, There are some challenges here, when we're looking at decertification, of course, because there's so many different facets behind it. And, there's so many different reasons why we move people from one place to the other, or we reclassify them, or we terminate them. So I want you to kind of look at this, at my proposal on what we should try to do. I'm not sure if that's the best way or not. It's just it's a starting point. But I want you to review that and maybe talk with your senior management and see if that's something that's viable. And then maybe in January, when we meet again, we can vote on it. My whole contention is this. We will be meeting twice, 3 times a month if we have to address every single termination, every single transfer, every single reclassification on our law enforcement. There's a lot. I mean, even at DOC, we're constantly going to civil service for one reason or another. So my contention is this, is that each agency goes through that post-commission, goes through the Civil Service Commission, and goes through that grievance process, or if, let's say an employee says, I don't want to be transferred, I don't want to be reclassified, I don't want to be terminated, so he goes to the Civil Service. Civil Service will look through that and say, okay, it's okay, they got justification. But each agency needs to also look very closely at what is asked of that law enforcement officer or that peace officer. And that's when I'm going to talk about the second part of the psychological and medical assessment. Because you might get a doctor that says, okay, he can't perform, let's say an officer has a broken arm or whatever, and it's his firing arm or what have you, okay? And the agency might say, well, you can't perform your duty. And how would that agency know? Let's say it's an autonomous agency, let's say the port or the airport police. You have administrative people that are going to make decisions on the capabilities of a peace officer, which I don't think should be right. It should be the post commission to determine that factor. But how we're going to do that is basically on the second part of our thing. So look at this, and in the backside I have a draft proposal of how we can do this. And another thing I want to point out is there's the ADA compliant, are we violating ADA standards? If an officer has a pre-existing condition or a condition that he cannot control, let's say thyroid, and he can't control his weight, that might be an ADA issue, right? So we have to, anytime there's an issue regarding the physical part, we need to do our due diligence and check with ADA and find out if it falls into that category. I think we can contact the EEO, federal EEO, and find out if that falls under that category or not. But each one has a different aspect of, how it apply or what have you. So please look through this, and I took some time to do research on it and to try to see if we can come up to a good solution. Essentially is this. If an employee gets terminated or what have you, transferred or whatever, and goes to the civil service, and civil service says it's valid or invalid, my contention is that we stay in line with the civil service because they have done all the investigations and what have you. And then the employee also has the opportunity to go to the court at another level. And let's say he's not happy with civil service, he can go to court to resolve it. If the court says he's good to go or not good to go, then you just follow suit. That's my my proposal, but I'm not sure that's the right way. But maybe we can have a lengthy discussion after you guys review this and go through your chain of command. Okay. The next part I want to go is the last part. Is okay. There are many law enforcement police officers right now that are in profile, right? And our first step is to give them reasonable accommodations. That's really what they ask for, and what is pretty much within the parameters of administrative rules, right? Now, besides that, besides giving them the reasonable accommodations, right, we can go further. And I gave a sample of what we use at DOC. Without violating their HEPA issues, we stick directly with their duties and responsibilities. Can they write police reports? Like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say a correction officer says, I can't be on the perimeter because I have, it's hot out there and so forth. So we make accommodations and we put it on dispatch, okay? So those are the things that we're trying to do, we've done so far. We've already established this in our policy. And I also included in our general order so that you can look at it and maybe if you want to duplicate it or add to it or what have you. So, and we sent this on via email so you can change the format or what. And then on the back side, we have the medical format or the format, and you can do it to whatever job. All we did is we took every single job description from correction officer 1 to correction officer 3, and we can even add administrative work. And then we asked the doctor to fill this out without asking whether he has a heart problem or he has diabetes and violating the HEPA. We just want to stick directly with what he can do on the job. Okay. And so this, and it also gives you an opportunity to find out how long is this going to happen. And then this will be your basis on whether or not to be classified, because he can't carry a weapon, he can't, run 1 mile, or he can't, do dead man's carry or what have you. These are the things that will help you in your situation. And by the way, we've already going through civil service on this issue regarding, assigning an officer to a certain location and is contesting it. So it's important to get down to the nitty-gritty, what is required of each and every employee. Because we have many situations right now in law enforcement, I know that for a fact, that some of the law enforcement officers and we can't ask them, let's say they don't show signs of any physical problem, right? Like he says, oh, my doctor says I can't do this, and we can't say, well, what's your problem, right? But what we can do is we can ask the doctor, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And so if he says, well, I can't escort any arrestees. Well, it says here, the doctor says you can do this, you can handcuff, whatever. So you make it down, you make your job description down to the nitty-gritty. That way we can assign them accordingly. And this has been, I know for a fact that this has been a problem for many agencies across the board. So hopefully this will help you out. And if you have any questions, please contact me, and I will happily help you out with whatever the issues are. But if you want to resolve your issues with profiles, medical profiles, at the same time be, compassionate, right? But we just, a lot of our, and this is why there's complaints. The officers are complaining, why do I have to put overtime for this guy? Or why is he getting hazardous pay and he's not doing full-time work? So it's about equality and, fairness, right? And all these other issues that come about. But this should help you out tremendously. Go ahead.
Maybe Camacho, the AG's office.
Go ahead.
Thank you for putting this together, Chief, the draft.
Right.
I just got a comment, maybe everyone can think about it, because you asked us to.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So you have decertification at number 4, right?
Okay.
But you have adverse action at number 3.
Okay.
I don't know, I was just kind of thinking, should decertification come before adverse action?
Yeah, I would, putting these.
Right? Because if you decert, I agree with you that we want to try and accommodate them, right? If you can't do this, we're gonna give you 90 days and do all this, right?
Right.
But if an employer has done everything they could to try and accommodate, whatever
Yes,
their
yes.
needs are, and you haven't met that requirement.
Okay, that's a good point.
Should a post come in and say, hey, we done this, we've provided him the opportunity to pass, to take the test as many times, he hasn't done it, right?
Right,
So at that point, if post decertifies that person,
yes,
that could be used against them in an adverse action.
yes.
Because they're no longer able to do their job.
And that's why I asked, yeah, and that's one of the comments that we can add on, or make some changes in the thing. But that's a good point, and, you know, I think in January we have a lengthy discussion, but what I'd like to do is have everybody go through this with your senior officers and lieutenant, and figure out what's the best option, and talk to your HR, you know, especially, and this will help you out, okay?
Question, have you had any challenges on this form?
No.
No?
I mean, well, yeah, I'll give you an example, you know, where officer was assigned to somewhere, and he says, well, you know, I can't do it, but according to their medical profile, he can do it, you know? So, and especially when you don't have, there's no significant signs of any physical issues, right? And again, also, it can be psychological, right? If it's a psychological issue, let's say you say, take this to your psychologist or your counselor or whatever, and ask them, can you do this? You know, I mean, some people are saying, claiming PTSD, right? You say, I have PTSD, I can't do that because I have PTSD. Well, give this to your counselor and fill it out. And mind you, this, just because the doctor says that doesn't mean it's okay. It just gives you
An idea.
measure, a time frame, you know, a measure of what you can do. Okay? So that's the thing. It can be medical, it can be physical, or psychological. Okay? Sir, go ahead.
Sir, Steve Elijah, GP. In case you guys don't know who I am yet.
You're familiar.
But, you know, we have a form similar that we use, and we actually have borrowed it or adopted it from the courts. The courts have their own.
Okay.
And so I think maybe I suggest that we each, as an agency, bring in our forms and kind of compare and contrast and see what's different.
Okay.
And maybe we can come up with one
Standard.
right? I don't know, for post, or if not, then just continue on what we're doing. I don't know if DOA has any input on, any guidance on these forms. Have you ever seen these forms? Have you ever dealt with them? What's your input, you know, as the HR specialist?
Francis from DOA, not me personally, that would probably be our employee management relations branch. But Chief, I think that's a good idea. What you're suggesting is to bring, I guess, all the other departments forward.
What we can do is we approve, let's say we say, okay, marshals want their own form, we can say, okay, we'll approve that. We can also do that too. Yeah, or let's say,
Because there might be something in some of the other forms that,
Yeah.
you know, that's a good idea.
Chief Ray has an idea as well.
and if it's sanctioned by, you know, us, right, I mean, the civil service is not gonna contest it because it's been approved by us, right? Yes.
Chief, is it okay if I can pass this out
What's
for
that?
the committee? This is something that we actually are,
Okay, all right. Oh, is this your,
this is the year.
okay, version. All right.
All the same.
Yes.
You and,
If I may, I think the chief had, chief of, Guam Police Department had mentioned the budget after policeone.com. It's actually, to maintain it, it's $5,000 a year. So that's what you're looking to budget.
Whoa, that's a lot.
$5,000 a year.
5,000 per person.
Thereafter, yeah, so after your initial cost of, policeone.com, to maintain, yearly, it's $5,000.
Per person or
No,
per agency?
for agency.
For agency, I thought it's.
For us,
Oh, for you guys.
our numbers are much
Yeah,
lower
but I
than-
said it's a per
But
person.
for someone like you, so for us, we have about 90 people.
Yeah, it's a per person cost.
We have actually 80 registered right now, so based upon those, so it could be higher or lower.
Go ahead.
Can I just make a comment real quick on the recertification?
And this is like,
And as well as the first one, because we come from a completely different grant.
Right.
So I will, and we don't have right now, at this point, So I will bring that back and,
Right.
and then we'll provide feedback. As well as, for the decertification, because we have a different structure.
Right.
As opposed to the civil service, we will,
Right.
take a look at it and adopt it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to see regarding that.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you. All right, that's it, we'll move on to the, I know that airport police, wanted to ask, you have a proposal for?
Yes,
So we're on new business now.
Yeah.
So this happened from the airport police chief. Thank you, Post Commission, for allowing me an opportunity. I'll give you a brief history, it'll be really quick. So this past year, we've all experienced, the pandemic. And so with the pandemic, it kind of like doing the PFQT has, our determination with our training and staff plans is that based upon our existing PFQT, there wasn't ability to modify, like I'll give you an example, our setups. Our person had to hold the feet of the individual and be there to count as he comes up. So given the pandemic and given the situation, we opted to look at alternatives. So we took a look at the Guam Police Department's ProPack and decided that we should take a look and see if we could venture into something like this. So for the past year, we've developed our PFQT policy, doing what we call the APAC, the Airport Police Physical Agility Test. And so with this test, gave us everything that we do within our normal job and allowed us, so we tested it in the past year and determined that this was a better standard for us, and we were hoping that the commission can look at it and vote on adopting our new APAC. So the biggest issue also was decertification based upon the PFQT. And our biggest issue was in our policy, our existing policies, the law allows us to have 4 tests in the year.
Right.
Okay. So if I took the test on my first initial try and I failed it, right? Or if I had a profile, let's go with a profile. The airport had the authority to come in based upon our policy and look at fit for duty. And so it kind of violates what the law or the spirit of the law is, allowing based upon the AFI that we had at the initial start, which was you fail and then they put you into a program, right? And so that program, it was a fit program, it was also a nutritional program, so it had all kinds of things to assist the officer or the soldier going forward into his next test. And so when you start to go from a profile on your first initial fail and you're going for fit for duty, that can be detrimental to the officer himself, because now he's faced not just psychologically thinking about trying to pass his test, but looking at his job now. And so that was one thing that we had to change in our policy. So in our policy, we were able to touch upon who has the authority. The commission is the one that has the authority to decertify. So we agree with the commission. And so this actually helps us go moving forward, and that our officers are not subjected to getting going on and our chief had just given you this. This is what they would have to fill out in their first initial fill on the profile. And so the doctors would have to take this and in return bring this back, and he's already started the process.
I'm really quite surprised that the airport is allowing to disclose an employee's medical issues like asthma and medication. I think we have to look at this HIPAA regulation more closely. I mean, some of the information they're asking there is, I would consider.
Chief, can I just clarify? The document actually that was handed out was the practice at the airport actually. Though that document is a blank document issued to the employee to hand carry to the doctor. As far as him filling it out, then it becomes a HEPA. It doesn't go back to the airport. The doctor clears him on that first, it's a two separate form. The first form actually is for the doctor. The doctor here, after the employee actually fills this out, he keeps this. He actually goes and takes the individual and goes through the process as an NFPA certified physician. The doctor now fills this up, telling the airport he has an ability to perform actual limited status duties. Like Chief Bob was explaining, HEPA is very, it's a must. We have to protect all our employees. Though some of our employees actually are basically just going out there, just claiming they're sick. But physically, mentally, we're not aware of those things. So we're not the professionals. So we hand them this, submit it to the medical physician, and then the doctor replies to the airport for this document to say he can perform certain
I see.
under limited status. But this thing doesn't go back to the airport.
Yeah, but even that, right, Chief, is.
Yes.
When you say limited, right? That is subject to, it's hard to.
I understand, and that's why I'm sharing with the commission what's happening at the airport.
Right.
That I totally disagree.
That's why I think you.
I want the commission to look at something that,
So in light of what everyone is saying, the airport police's stance in this is to ensure that the law is followed and that everybody is given that opportunity to test 4 times in that year, just like the law had intended. And ensuring that based upon the commission passing this will give us what we need to be able to give our HR department and let them know that this is what needs to be, this is what needs to happen going forward.
Right.
And so fixing all the other issues, this is where we're at today.
Okay, all right. Well, and I'm fully aware about those limited duties, right?
Yeah.
We never understood what that meant. Sometimes it means can't work at night, sometimes it means, 8-hour work, not 12 hours, we don't know. That's why we need to be specific, right, in the description. Okay, sir, anything else?
Anybody, I'm opening up the floor for any other new business.
I have,
Chief?
GPD is requesting an extension on the PFPT. Our obstacle course is under repair, and we won't be able to finish repairs until later. And so we're pushing our PFPT to January completion timeframe. So we're asking for a 1-month extension.
Can I have a question? So I wasn't here at the last meeting, so my other, I think the last meeting you guys voted on resuming the PFPT, right?
Yes.
Okay.
December.
So this PFPT is for this coming year? I'm just trying to figure out when, because I mean,
Yes.
we're given
Yes, for this year.
for opportunities right the year. And so I'm just wondering, are we in violation if it's due at the end of this December?
Well, we can.
It's within the 12-month period, so if you start in December, you actually give until 12 months after
of
that.
December.
So,
I get it.
Okay.
yeah, so we're not retroactively going back because we put a waiver on it because of the COVID situation.
And
So this
that's
will count
why,
for this period
Director
upcoming.
Chief, that's my concern right now is because of COVID going forward, we wanted to push off the floor, so I'm just saying, so now it's pushed to, so what is the actual certification date, to turn in? our
Oh, no, I'm
PFPT?
just asking for
He's
GPD.
just asking for GPD.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the whole
Yes.
postal commission.
He's just asking
This is just for GPD
Yeah,
because
just
our
for
obstacle
GPD.
course.
Okay, can you see a show of hands who have not taken their?
Yeah, we haven't taken it, that's why.
We're scheduled.
We're scheduled.
We're scheduled the other.
Okay.
We're scheduled, guys, actually, we did ours, just have to submit it.
Our obstacle course is not ready to do a
We take ours, your stuff, we
Chief.
use your stuff.
Yeah, so
So I guess what I'm asking
is.
is, so we're giving this 12-month period, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it starts in December is what you're saying, all the way to the following.
December. But if you're gonna ask for an extension, like what Chief Mentaloni, or, if you're asking for an extension like what Chief Ignacio was expressing.
So I might be wanting to jump on it because I actually want to get my APAT approved before we start testing.
Okay.
I do not want to test the old one because I think that, that would mean I would have to hold the feet and I would have to count. And, you know, I'm not about to subject my people to that.
Can I go ahead and comment on the part of the holding the feet? We went ahead, we were actually doing the 210. We went off that and we went with the FPAC. So we do have a bar over there, the
I
firehouse.
understand, but in the policy itself, it doesn't.
Yes,
doesn't allow you
I
to
understand.
modify.
Yeah.
So I'm saying based upon the policy that was submitted into law,
Yes,
I would have to
Someone was
follow
holding
that
the
policy. And so there's no modification to holding your feet on the sit-up position.
Well, perhaps you can make a motion to include Chief Ignacio's motion just to give an additional amount of time
for
in
GPD.
order for the police department, number one, to catch up and fix their equipment, and then for us to be able to conduct a review of your fitness policy. That way you don't have to go
Right.
and use the old standards. So if we put it in a motion, we can just vote on it real quick.
I'm with you.
If I may take a step back, Chief, morning, David Feisen, Superintendent of DYA. We were talking in regards to the testing, and we're looking at starting at December of 2021 to December of 2022 to be a full year. So
Right.
essentially, we can hold one in December. That's what we're literally planning, almost like a diagnostic
Right.
before we go into a full-on record
Mhm.
thereafter. But we'll have to complete it before 2022.
Right.
Is that correct, my understanding?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay, so,
I'm good with your motion, Chair, so I would like to jump on with extending arms.
I would like also, because we use their
equipment.
Yeah.
And Chief Ignacio, you said extended until when?
Uh,
January, February?
They're asking for January 31st. He wants to get the January to
Okay.
complete our EFT qualification.
All in favor? Aye. Carries.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Yes, I have a couple, I just have a couple. I was sent a message.
There's just for Ignacio, GPD,
No, we were.
for everybody.
We're jumping on his.
Yes.
movement also, so.
Oh, you guys are using our,
Yeah, so I'm saying.
We like
So
you
is that
so much
everybody
to
or is it your motion?
Thank you for doing that, sir.
Have our own customs has their own.
wait, are we going back to this? And
No.
No, we're done? Okay. But he's asking for his,
Same thing.
They're using your equipment, sir.
yeah, so I think he's asking for an extension for.
I mean, we
So-
could,
Yeah.
we stick to January and the majority of us, we'll go ahead and go 30 days. I'm still gonna provide
Yeah.
Okay.
some sort of diagnostic.
Just that anybody who, yeah.
Okay, all right.
That just gives us another full year, sir,
Wait,
2022 to officially 2023 now.
So I am confused then now, because I was in the same understanding as DYA, and then you had a separate motion, or just for your agency.
Right, it was just for my agency.
Right, so what now was the,
So there are other law enforcement organizations that utilize the Guam Police Department's equipment in order to conduct their poll pats. So in order for them to be able to participate, the police department has to fix their equipment, which is towards January.
okay, so for those agencies, January,
Yeah.
for those of
Yes.
us who came December? Is that
Yes.
what it is? Okay,
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 all right.
thank you for the clarification.
So, the next thing I wanted to bring up is I got a message from one of the staffers from the, one of the senator's office. And he asked, Chief, wasn't there a motion that, you don't, the testing is at the back end, for hiring? Let me just read that message. And this actually, I brought this up at, before. Here's the question exactly. Chief, didn't the polls change the testing requirement to the back end of the hiring process?
Yes,
So,
we did.
I think there was some discussion of that.
We did.
Okay, so which testing are we talking about?
The physical fitness.
The physical fitness, the
I
written
think they're
test?
talking
The
about
entry,
DOA's,
higher.
they're talking about DOA's, math and English test is what we
Yeah.
were,
Right.
was on the table at the time.
Right. So that's just the question. The bigger problem is what I've talked about in the past, and I think Chief Bob and I, when I was the chairman, and Chief Bob was still the director at the time, there was a question from the Guam compiler of laws. And the question was, where are your changes to your GAR, your administrative rules, and when was it last updated? So I brought this up before. We talk here, we make amendments, we proffer rule changes, but it's not being properly captured in the GAR.
Okay.
And so the GAR is what drives what we do, right? And so there's a lot of things that we've adopted. Like, my understanding is, I was approached by someone who says, hey, Post that they adopted the Air Force Security Forces training to meet the post requirement.
The 201.
I don't know that. I've never read it. I've never seen it in the GAR. And so, was it discussed?
Yes, it was. It was.
Yes,
But that's what I mean.
And,
But that's
it
what I
wasn't
mean.
identified.
Okay.
Is
We got that, no.
we adopted, the Post Commission adopted the Security Forces training for the Air Force to meet the Post Commission requirements. But where's that codified? Where do you find it? To
In the
reference
GAR.
it and says, hey, look, your GAR, your administrative rules says you adopted it. So as, I wanted to advise the commissioners, as we move along, I think we should go back and also look at what have we done to change the composition of the educational
Right.
requirements?
Yes.
What have we done to change like this decertification process? It's gonna have to be proposed and
Right.
adopted and codified into the GAR.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to bring up, because we talk a lot and we discuss things that are really good for the commission, but we're not capturing it in the administrative rules, and we're not amending the rules to reflect where we're at. Okay.
yeah, I think Chief Mantononia are, I think it was discussed, the 2.0 and the 2.1 version. It was discussed, but yes, you're right, it's not in the.
Yeah, it has to be, and that's why the compiler of laws
Right,
has reached out to the commission at one time saying, hey, look, I haven't heard from the commissioner in a while. What administrative rules have you guys adopted or changed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so that just puts a
Gotta
lot
go back,
of
gotta go back.
importance on the hiring
Right.
of the executive director as a full-time, as well as probably one or two more staff.
And I think that's always been the challenge for the commission, is that nobody's ever been here full-time, all the time, to really follow the law.
Okay.
And then the last one is just what Chief Joey and I were talking about earlier, the Ethics Commission training. So for airport and port, my proposal was to do the ethics training, because if you have a new hire, you have only 6 months from the date of hire to make sure that they complete the ethics training. Anybody that's in before the 6 months from the date of the law has 3 years for compliance, so they're grandfathered in. But I think the police recruits that we have to meet that 6-month requirement. So my proposal was to have the ethics have them attend ethics training before they hit the streets.
Yes.
And so what I'm doing is I'm finding money within my budget to train, to pay for the ethics training.
So Chief, this happened from the airport. I believe our guys have ethics training because we all had to go through it. And so, let me just pull the record. I can get, I believe they have a training certificate that was given.
From the Post Commission, I mean the Ethics Commission?
Yes, that's
So the airport conducted their own ethics training. We had an attorney, Nita Ariola.
I think that the law is kind of specific though. I think you have to go through ethics commission.
Really?
I think, I don't to double check.
Okay, I'll find out, but that's a good concern. I'll get back to you.
yes,
Just for your one guy? Is he gonna make arrangements so that we can, and it's not hard, it's just a direct deposit, I mean, it's a direct payment on a JV, a document to the Ethics Commission. It's $80 per person. That's all I have. Oh, sorry. The AG's office did send myself and Investigator Camacho to a de-escalation training. And so I'd like to present that to the commission for adoption. I'll have the people that were trained come in and do a presentation.
Okay, in January.
It meets it's a version of the old verbal judo,
Okay.
and it meets the requirement for de-escalation training. It's approved by the PERF, Police Education Research Foundation. Yeah. It's a very good training, that's what I heard.
Yeah, we're developing a curriculum and we're gonna probably
Yeah.
start with the recruits as well.
Yeah,
Chief wants to do.
we're gonna train this batch of recruits on de-escalation training.
I know the court and the airport are kind of developing
Yeah,
something,
so,
right?
just to add on to the courts, I think I could talk about now because, it was already mentioned already. And so I believe the courts, have been awarded, de-escalation, there's a grant and they were able to get de-escalation. That individual, I believe, is scheduled to come in soon, I'm not sure when. But I was talking to the AG chief here, and maybe it was something that maybe you guys can take a look at too as well, maybe send somebody to because if it's the same thing, I think then we're all tracking the same way. So I'll go ahead and yield to the chief here.
Yes, we were awarded a COPS grant for the escalation training, so that is something we just thought about over it last week, so that's something that we're starting to take a look at and be able to be able to.
Let us know.
price.
So what I was trying to figure out whether or not, because these guys are trained.
It's a trainer, so I mean, some agencies have already expressed interest in the Director Joe already. So, once we develop the curriculum, we want to start with the recruits first and then start pushing it out to the other organizations that are interested.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is also a train the trainers,
Awesome, that's what we need.
yes.
So if I could make a suggestion, maybe, chief, maybe if you, I believe it's Joe, and maybe you guys can talk and see whether or not the curriculum is the same.
Okay.
And if it is, then, then that's something they're already doing. It'll follow along with what.
Which course is this? You know the name of the,
So the individual comes from, Human Research Factor Group.
that's what it was.
Yeah, so they're nationally, known. And
Actually,
so, it'd be a guy named, Instructor Russell Tanky that would be coming out.
actually with the grant, as far as I know, we're looking at a trainer with the grant, we have to have the trainer approved by the grant
Right.
management, so.
He comes Tommy certified. He came before the train GPD airport. I believe you guys had one marshals. I'm not sure if customs had anybody in it, but yeah, he came one time like in 2009.
Yeah, de-escalation, it's, I mean, a lot of states are mandating all their law enforcement officers to undergo this training. So like New Jersey, the whole state of New Jersey, all their law enforcement officers have to be ICAT certified in order to maintain their certification as law enforcement officers. So, that's just.
If I may, when we have a verbal judo instructor, and we're just using that, I actually went to New York for that training. And I do have the certificate to instruct verbal judo.
Wow,
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Well, that's, I mean, there's many different types of de-escalation training, and there's nothing wrong with adopting all of them. They're all aimed to doing the same thing. Doesn't matter where you go to train.
so we just want to make sure that we're counted for, and I can send you guys documents and stuff. Okay.
I was just gonna comment on the, now regarding the ethics training that the judiciary has established, an ethics academy. So all the employees, we are currently undergoing, training, so.
Would you be able to like offer it out to like the other law enforcement, or kind of like?
Are you sure that's, you can create our own ethics?
Well, I know that our ethics academy has been in communication with the ethics commission.
Oh, okay.
And we're a
Awesome.
separate branch, so that is something that, I know that there's been collaboration about.
That's good, because, that way we don't have to pay $80.
Well, I have to.
Yes.
Sorry, I'll have to get back to you on that.
One one last thing I'd like to cause trouble, but just one thing we honestly need to talk about, and Dr. Fee talked about this. The Post Commission needs to start to think about being self-sustaining. And so we really have to start thinking about starting to pay for our people to be Post Commission members. So you could probably put that on the table for, something else, for the next discussion, can we start establishing a fee schedule that we can adopt, so that we can start paying into it, so that maybe we can sustain this post executive director and this administrative assistant and all the gizmos and gadgets that this young lady over there has, because we need it. So something to consider. Okay. Thank you.
Any other new business? Otherwise, I open the floor for any announcements from the room. Okay, seeing none, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. We just have to agree that January 29, 2022 will be our next meeting. And just as a reminder, please read all the documents that have been given to you, because we're going to be voting on several topics to include like the fitness policy from the airport and other items. So please read, keep it in the back of your mind, and we are now going to adjourn. It is 11:15. Thank you, everybody.
Wait.
Motion.
Yeah, motion to,
I stand corrected. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Meeting adjourned, 11:15. Thank you.